Yeah, so as the performance manager, my role is essentially to record data and metrics, attach goals to those desired outcomes to each metric, and then to search for inefficiencies within those systems when we don't meet our goals. One of the projects that I'm currently working on is creating a master fleet replacement plan. So the city of Hartford has approximately 460 vehicles, and a lot of them are sort of past their useful life expectancy. Most of those vehicles should be replaced every, 8 to 10 years. And so one of the other things we're trying to do is slowly replace them with hybrids or electric vehicles. But the question is like, how do we prioritize which vehicles go first? So we are currently attempting to create a plan that would take every single vehicle in the city that's been purchased within the last 5 years and actually replace them when their useful life expectancy is met. And then go backwards and start replacing those old vehicles in sort of a timely manner. If you told me that I would be sitting here either in the budget department or in as the performance manager, my job was to look at data and metrics and numbers, I would not believe you. Originally, I majored in history, so this was not even on my radar when I was getting my degree. But I was involved with the student government at my college, and then I was the treasurer of my student government, and I realized then that responsible budgeting of these different clubs would allow those clubs and other like stakeholders in the school to provide more services and provide more events to the people who are going to that school. And so I realized eventually that I could transfer that work into sort of this government position that I had. And so that's sort of how I got my foot through the door with the city as a budget analyst. I was doing something similar, so helping departments manage their funds and operations responsibly can translate it to continued or increased services to the people of Hartford, and so that's something that I very much value. It sounds sort of cheesy, but Microsoft Excel is probably the best thing that I could have ever learned at all. Like a lot of my work is, I'm not doing the math, but Microsoft Excel is doing the math. And if I can convince it to do all of the math for me, then that's incredibly useful. I think when you think of budget work, you think of math, but again, Microsoft Excel is doing the math. The skills that I learned as a history major was sort of to see patterns and trends in the data and then use all of that knowledge sort of project forward and then sort of make my own analysis and informed decisions based on that analysis that I sort of learned how to do as a history major. So being a history major like taught me how to think differently. And I think that's sort of the best skill that I could have had coming into my current job is just sort of looking at all of these numbers and making inferences from that, which is not necessarily math, but I definitely learned it more as a history major reading books on communism than I did my master's degree. So many different things. I've had a lot of really good advisors here, a lot of really good bosses here at the city of Hartford. Slow down, first of all, and then stop and listen. Like those are really two big themes for me. So slow down and check your work is really sort of the biggest advice that I've ever gotten and I use every day. I remember when I was a kid, one of my favorite cousins is an engineer, and so she would always drag me to all of these STEM events. And I would sit there thinking, I don't want to do any of this. Math is awful. I was decent at it and I was good at it, but I didn't want to do math. So I guess my advice is that sort of focus on the things that you like and that's the things that you're good at. Adapt for the things that you're not good at, but you can sort of make it up as you go. But also a lot of the other skills that you have doing different things really translates pretty well to a lot of other STEM categories. Well, so one, as I mentioned earlier, I am a young Latino in a field that is dominated by older white men who have been doing their jobs for decades. I've found that a lot of people who are in my field, not only just government work, but specifically budget work or financial work, are just people who have been doing it for a very long time and they're overly fond of their own voices. And that's just in general, not specifically here at the city of Hartford. It was really rough to have to like know that my voice wasn't taken seriously at first. And even now, I still have to make sure that all of my data is like 100% correct, that there's nothing that anybody can ever question about my work. And I have to sort of try and, even harder than other people to prove that I deserve my job and that my voice is as important to others. And I'm not necessarily sure if that's just because of my age or, you know, my race, but it's a field that's not overly inclusive as of now. But I think that one of the best things about, I guess, giving advice to younger people is that like that's the change. So like go into the STEM field so that you can make it better for other people around you. And then another misconception is that my job is just numbers. Like there's a human element that I think is incredibly important to a lot of the STEM work that I do. And if we sort of take out that human aspect and we just sort of have a bunch of numbers on a page, and that there's no real world implication. So I think it's sort of important to recognize that a lot of people who do my job or do my job well add that like real world touch to it. Otherwise, you just, you know, it's very cold.